So let's move on to our next speech. 现在是个全球化的世界每个人都喜欢学不一样的语言，像我们讲中文的学英文，讲英文的学中文。How to learn it? I don't know. But before I present our speaker of the speech today, I would like to invite our evaluator for him and to talk about what she's going to focus on his speech. Okay? Ella, please. Thank you.
So tonight is Barry's sixth speech called Vocal Variety. So there are three objectives. The first one is to use the voice volume, pitch, rate, and the quality to reflect and adding meaning and interest to his message. The second one is use pause to enhance his message. The third one is use vocal variety smoothly and naturally. Now let's welcome Barry.
Okay, 深呼吸. My speech today is in English. The speech topic is learn Chinese inventively. So Ustra, you're probably going to point out the title has some grammar mistake there, right?
Learning Chinese.
Okay, and
I like the use of the adverb. Keep going.
yeah, we'll get to that point. So most people probably know this by now as well. In Chinese, there's sort of no standard grammar rule. So if you know the common word you use, you rarely make any grammar mistake. Right? People know that, right? If you put the word right, usually you're right. Sentence structure is sort of secondary. So the picture you look at is kind of the root of a big tree. Chinese people value a lot about their culture, and then the culture actually, big essence of that is their root, what their ancestors do, and then what's the root of their family. So this presentation initially started up with the idea of convincing my kids to go to Chinese school on every Saturday. They usually will ask me, why do I have to learn Chinese? And then I'll be like, okay, let me think of a way to convince you. So I decided to take a different approach. I asked them this question. So what motivates you to learn something? And then they say, what's motivation? And I say, okay, let me change my direction. Who do you admire the most? And then he started throwing out people's names like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. And I said, okay, keep that in mind. I was hoping they can say somebody like Kongzi. But I know there's no hope there. Their Chinese culture class, they never took that before. They took some lesson in Chinese, but their experience and their lesson they took so far, they don't have that kind of exposure yet. So I decided to take the approach of how versus why. Instead of focusing to teach them how to learn Chinese effectively, where I feel they could actually do that very well in the modern world. With Google, with all the online tool, online game. If they have the motivation, they can easily do that themselves, even without my help. So I decided to focus my attention on how do I build up their motivation, and then that key question, the key question there is basically why do they have to learn Chinese? I took one vertical slice approach. Since they talk about all these entrepreneur or rich people or whoever was considered successful in the modern world, people like Bill Gates, people like Steve Jobs, they invented something, right? They invented something and they started a company and they become a successful person. So I started to talk to them about their 4 great innovations in the ancient Chinese time. And most people probably know it's paper, printing, compass, and gunpowder. 所以纸张、印刷术、指南针，还有火药。And by the way, the paper was actually really invented by my ancestor. If you look up the Google and then whoever invented the paper is called Cai Run. And the same last name as I do, right? So what a convenience. So I put down the first one to convince them. Say, hey, do you know who invented this? Our ancestor. Do you know that? That started to caught their interest.
Oh.
So, but they started to question me, right? Like, who speaks Chinese? Nobody speaks Chinese in school. I was like, you're right, because you're in America right now. And then he also said, I think only old people speak Chinese. Because they talk to me, my wife, my mother, and my grandmother, and then the grandmother from my wife's side, and then like, yeah, I think only old people speak Chinese. I was like, that's not true. I will try to convince you. So I took another, remember the 4 innovation we talked about? And then there's a lot more actually Chinese culture and Chinese language can offer to them. So I decided to give them some idea of how rich for and enrichment the history and culture and innovation Chinese people actually come up with before. And that's kind of my direction. So then I switched to the other side of the fence, right? Modern world, the world they're familiar with. So they say, okay, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. What do they invented? And then they, of course, know about GPS. And they know about Google Maps. And then I point to them and say, do you know those inventions actually is based on a great invention from China called compass? Without compass, people probably don't have iPad, or people probably don't have GPS and Google Maps today. They started nodding. And then the next innovation in the modern world, of course, not just technology, right? Of course, they don't drink beer yet, but they know from the commercial, Budweiser, Bud Lights. So that's an American thing, right? No, actually, you have Chinese finger all over the place again. Chinese people invented vinegar a long time ago, and then they invented the process of fermentation, which is the main process to actually make wine and alcohol. And then they nod again. And then again, this is the world they're also very, very, very much familiar with. iPad and Kindle, the e-paper and the media, internet. Everything again comes from the concept of paper and printing. Right? With paper, people start writing documentation, literature. With printing, people started sending out information to other people. So as a result, I don't convince them how to learn Chinese effectively, but I try to convince them, what's your motivation to learn Chinese? And then you're actually giving not just the language itself. Once you master the language, you open the door to another world which you probably don't see very much in the United States. It's pretty much a very culture enrichment, a long history, and then actually it's actually a big group of people. There's actually the most population in the whole entire world. Actually, more people speak Chinese than English. And then there's great people, great ancestors have great invention, and then build on top of those inventions, you can become a successful people. So I started to motivate them to go to Chinese school again that Saturday. I don't know if this will work next time. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so again, please take 1 minute to write a few comments for our speaker. Barry's hi, if you have something you want to share with him and anything else you would like.